So again, welcome to all the students out here. This is the ProfessionalQuest Certified Financial Planning panel. Today, we have a great panel in store for you. We're going to detail the world, the life, the career of a financial planner. And this is all obviously kind of with in mind the financial planning and wealth management degree that we're kicking off here in the School of Business in the fall. So with us, we have Dan Lash, who's a partner at VLP Financial Advisors. We have Susan Chesson, Senior Wealth Advisor at Buckingham Strategic Wealth. Jason Howell, who's the founder of Jason Howell Company, and who will also be teaching the intro financial planning class in the fall. And finally, we have John Yankee, CFO and founder of FJY Financial. So to begin, I'm going to let each of the speakers today introduce themselves and maybe give a quick bio. So let's go with Dan first.
Okay. I'm actually a 1997 graduate of George Mason. I got a BS in economics. I started in the field as an intern with my current firm in 1996. I became a partner in the firm in 2010. So all of the 24 years I've been in the business, 23 of them have been in the firm that I'm currently at today. One of my other partners was also an intern at VLP, and she's now been with the firm for 13 years. And she became a partner 2 years ago. I was born and raised in Northern Virginia and got two kids who neither of which want to go to George Mason, even though I pushed them hard to go there. We live in Fairfax right near the school, and they want to go as far away as they can.
Thank you. Susan?
Hi, I'm Susan Chesson. I have a very different background from Dan. I grew up in England. I moved here after college and did a master's in business administration at the University of Texas. I actually joined Buckingham Strategic Wealth. Yeah, I'm not a big Viva fan, but so I joined Buckingham about 2.5 years ago when we sold our small Northern Virginia-based firm to Buckingham, which is a much larger institution based out of St. Louis. After I got my MBA, I worked in corporate finance at Capital One, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Federal Reserve Board, kind of all over the place for about 20 years. I did a lot of investment management, some pension asset management, securities accounting work. So I took a very kind of tortuous path to get into this industry. And what I finally was able to take a break out of the workforce, take my CFP, which is at the gold standard in our industry, and join a firm almost 9 years ago now, and I've never looked back. I love what I do. It's a combination of numbers and helping people, and it's really a lot of fun. I'm so glad you guys are starting this program.
Great, thank you. Jason?
Derek. Jason Howell, though I see my profession and vocation as sharing the joy of financial planning, whether it's with my book, Joy of Financial Planning, or teaching it here at Mason, or the business I have. It didn't start out that way as it did with Dan. We graduated the same year, Dan, 1997, but I majored in accounting, and I said no to a job with Ameriprise back in 1997. I just had a whole different kind of career. So if you learn anything from me, you can learn that you can have a bunch of different careers and still end up in financial planning. Because one of the great things about financial planning is it surmises everything you've ever done and wraps it all together. And then, as Susan said, if you can get that CFP designation and really undergird your wealth of wisdom with some real knowledge, you can do a lot of good for people. And that's why I'm here.
Great. Thank you. And John Yankee.
Hi, John Yankee. I'm founder and CEO of FJY Financial. I got my undergraduate degree in international studies and Japanese, which has nothing to do with what we do right now at the University of Richmond. Did some trade policy for a while, got my MBA, and then I started my career in this profession at Merrill Lynch for 2 years, which was fascinating and happy to talk about. And then moved over to the independent side, fee-only firm back in 2002 and founded the firm I'm currently with in 2005. So a long road to hoe. Live in the area, live in Ashburn, 2 kids. One's a freshman in college. I'm also an adjunct professor at Golden Gate University. So I'm used to teaching classes online. So although it's usually just posting stuff versus video chats. So this is fun for me. So thanks for having me.
Thank you to the 4 of you. Yeah, this is great. So let's jump right into it. So again, today kind of the structure is just for all the students out there that are listening, we're going to kind of just talk about the career that a CFP will embark on, and kind of the value of the degree that we're offering here and what you can kind of expect. Maybe that'll take about 45 minutes, and then we will open it up for questions which you can ask through the chat. So the first question we have, what can you expect with this career, and what drew you to this particular career field? And I will throw that one to Dan first.
It was my father who got me interested in investing. I started investing when I was 14 years old when I got my first job. And the finance field in college was interesting, but I chose economics instead. I just always had a penchant for wanting to learn more about finances and personal finances for myself. But then I worked in a lot of service businesses throughout high school and college, mostly in the restaurant business, as a lot of college kids do. And I just liked helping people. So I figured maybe I can help people with their finances at the same time. I've interviewed quite a few students over the years for internships over the last 20 years. And that seems to be a recurring theme. People, they want to find a career where they can help other people. I've also heard people, students who got into the business or wanted to get into it because they saw certain things happen inside their family from a financial perspective. Usually bad, but sometimes good. And they wanted to turn around and say, well, I saw these family members make these poor decisions. I want to figure out a way that I can make sure that others don't do that. And so they chose the financial planning profession. It's a great field to be able to help people and make a nice living.
Thank you. Thank you. The next question I'll jump right into. And this one is directed for Susan. So again, we're launching this financial planning and wealth management degree coming up in about, let's see, 4 months. Fingers crossed on that. It's still on track for that. And we have, right off the bat, we're going to be having a intro to financial planning class. We're going to be having an investments class in the finance department. That will be all part of this curriculum. And again, if any students have questions over the curriculum, they can always just email me and or you can go to our website. But I wanted to throw the question to you. What are some classes that you might take, that you found as a financial planner that were really helpful in your college career?
So that's interesting. Like John, I came from a very different background. My college degree is actually in French and Russian literature. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think having the core course of a CFP is absolutely crucial. That gives you the basic building blocks to become a successful, effective planner. But that really only gives you the technical skills. And I think the greatest challenge in our industry, certainly for client-facing advisors, is clear communication. So I think any course that you take where you're developing critical thinking skills, good speaking skills, or clear, well thought through writing skills, presentation skills, those are really courses that will stand you in great stead, because no client is going to pay you to manage their money if you send them sloppy responses back. I mean, attention to detail is absolutely crucial, as is the big picture problem solving. And so clear communication, be it to an engineer, to a 90-year-old lady, to an 18-year-old inheritor, just really changing the message to make sure that it gets through to the person who, at the end of the day, is hiring you, to make sure that their money is in safe hands and that you're ensuring that they'll have financial security. So, you know, if you're interested in economics, if you're more interested in accounting, it really just, you know, do what you're interested in. College is a fantastic opportunity to learn and develop skills and spend time learning from others that you won't get in the rest of your life. And as Jason mentioned, becoming a successful financial planner really is a nice kind of aggregation of every skill that you develop. Each of us have the same passion for helping people and very similar technical knowledge, but very different interests, very different ways of approaching financial planning problems. And so there is no one track. Sorry, that wasn't helpful, was it?
No, that was a great answer. That was a great answer. And you're exactly right. In the GMU program, or I'm sure any other program that is a certified financial planning undergrad degree, you're going to get the hard info. You're going to get finance. You're going to get accounting, and you're right. But you have to practice things that are of the softer skills, you know, presentation skills, sitting down and talking with people. And you're right. To stress that is really good. Really good. And fundamentally, you have to enjoy helping people.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Great. Great first set of answers. So to Jason, what did the CFP designation open up in terms of, you know, doors in your career?
He's muted.
Oh, how did you get muted?
I thought it would be smart to mute myself and then realize I can't unmute myself. What can you do? So yeah, how does the CFP help? Well, really two big ways. Yeah, anyone who's been in this profession knows the feeling of sort of just huge, I don't know, intimidation in the fact that you're going to go in and help a family with their financial goals and against their financial concerns. And so for yourself, getting a CFP is just a big deal. More than anything else, the fact that you went through the crucible of earning those marks is a really big deal. But certainly for anyone who's a student considering this profession, like Susan said, you're going to get the respect of your peers. And they'll get to be peers because they might actually hire you if you're on the track to get these CFP marks. It's not easy. You go through a curriculum that we'll now have at Mason, but just like some of the other really tough tests, like the CPA exam that I never passed, you got to go through your own sort of study session with that too, having 6 to 8 to 10 weeks of really studying this stuff in a way to pass that test. And then of course you need 2 to 3 years before you can earn those marks of experience. And so there's a lot to go through just to earn the marks. My business partner was the last person in the testing center 2-3 weeks ago before they closed all the testing centers across the country. They only offer this exam 3 times a year. So he got really lucky. But just like myself, he's a career changer. Full career before he got into financial planning, very respected, made 6 figures and wanted to do this work. But I tell you, it meant a lot to him and his family that he passed that CFP exam and he can add those marks to his name. And it means a lot to me and my firm, and it means a lot to all of our clients. And so, like I said, 2 prongs there. It's going to mean a lot to you because it's so darn hard. It's going to mean a lot to your peers as well.
Great answer. Great. Yeah. So next question I was going to throw to John. What other skills are critical for students here that are listening, looking to pursue this field?
So I think I'm going to repeat a lot of what Susan said and Jason has said, because I know that my teenage kids think that I'm really good at math and that to be a financial planner, you need to know math and maybe a little bit of science or something. But you know, that's why we have calculators, and that's why we have financial calculators. I think the skills that Susan talked about, you know, people skills, this is a relationship business. If people are looking for someone to manage their money, they can find a robo-advisor who can do it for free with no relationship. What people hire CFPs for is the relationship, which is not just about people skills, but it's about experience. The experience that we've gained over time, the experience that our clients have had that we're able to then relay to clients over time. So just the ability to relate and connect to people, I think, is one of the greatest skills to have. Susan mentioned communicating, and I would say listening, especially. Clients sometimes want to talk, and they just want to keep talking. And they might talk for 90% of the meeting, and you added a couple of pieces of wisdom along the way, but because they got to speak their part and get more comfortable, if you were able to connect with them without saying a whole lot, they might find that invaluable and worth its weight in gold in terms of the fees they're paying you. And I think in terms of other classes, I think things like psychology are very important. We're in a market environment right now where people are being driven by emotion, and understanding human psychology and why people make decisions and how they make decisions is not only fascinating, but it's important to know as you're talking a client off of a ledge. I had a conversation this morning with a client who I spoke with Friday, and they were comfortable and fine. And today he's emailed and said, I think I want to get out of the market.
Wow.
And the psychology of that, I had to hear him, listen to him, and validate that it was a rational and reasonable thought process, and connect in that way. But then tell him why I disagreed with him, and give him some things to think about. And at the end of the day, it's his money, and we'll do what he asks us to do. But he and his wife are going to sleep on the few things that I told him. And so understanding the psychology of how people make decisions is really important in this. And it's, again, just the people skills. People don't realize that this is a people and relationship business. This is not a math profession. The people who are best at it are the ones who are able to relate to people.
Very, very great points. I like it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not robotic, right? It's dealing with individuals that have, that get fearful when the market drops 35% in the past month and then rebounds, and then they want to get out. And you're right. And so managing that is probably of utmost importance in managing human emotion.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, John.
Sure.
Let's turn to the next question, which I'll throw back to Dan. How important are internships, study abroad, or associating with other individuals in the career of a certified financial planner or wealth manager?
Internships are, they're as important in this profession as they are any other profession you're going to get into. Gaining experience and understanding what the daily life of a financial planner looks like is important. I think you guys at Mason are going to have some access to some of the technology that some planners use, and having access to that and then being able to actually use it. Every one of us here on the panel are looking for interns who can actually come in and do some of the work that we do, and we can help them get better at that, so that when they do graduate and they're ready to go into the profession, the learning curve is not that steep. We hire interns at least one a summer, and then we usually have a Mason student during the school year. And we look forward to being able to have Mason students during the summer, now that this program is going to be up and running. Other things students can do is they're going to be starting a FPA student chapter, Financial Planning Association student chapter. I encourage the students to, join the chapter, but also reach out to other advisors. I'm sure Jason, John, and Susan would be happy to come speak and get more in depth of what it's like to be an advisor. And I know there's 6 advisors in my firm, and 2 of us went to George Mason. Senior partner taught classes at Mason 20 plus years ago. So there's lots of people who have affiliations with the school, and they want to see this program succeed. And so there's ample opportunity for the students to meet advisors, and there's a lot of successful advisors in the area. So try to get in front of those people and talk to them about how they got into the profession, and network with them, There's even a Financial Planning Association chapter locally that I would encourage students to attend when they have time, to try to network, because networking eventually will turn into a job, and that's what we're all looking for when we go to college. Turn it into a job. So,
yeah, very great point. So 2 things to follow up on there that Dan just brought up. Yes, there will be a Financial Planning Association student chapter here, opening up in about a month. I highly recommend everyone that's listening to join it. That'll be a great thing where they'll be inviting in professionals like the 4 that you see in front of you to come and speak to you. I think it'll be great in terms of career moves. And then 2, I will say this, that, again, we're opening up this new concentration here, this new degree in the business school. And the amount of support that I've seen from CFPs in the local area that want to get involved and want to hire people for internships is like I've never seen before. Again, I'm a finance professor, and I have maybe every once in a while I have a person from a local bank or a credit union or something coming by and talking, but the amount of CFPs that want to get involved in this program and want to assist in getting internships and hiring is phenomenal. So I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot more like the 4 CFPs in front of you. You'll be seeing a lot more CFPs throughout your program if you do go with this degree. So phenomenal point, John. Thank you. Next question I will throw to Susan. What kind of entry-level jobs are available, and what is the best way to pursue entry-level jobs coming out of an undergrad degree?
Thank you. That's a great question, and I could talk for hours because our industry is very, very broad. I'm not going to, don't worry. No, because we have small firms, we have large firms, we have advisors who, they're the infrastructure, the technology support, the financial planner, the business developer, the accountant, it really, and then we've got large firms such as Buckingham, where we hire an associate wealth advisor, which is our entry-level position, and you come in and your job purely is to support a wealth advisor, to get to know that advisor's clients, to do all of the prep for meetings, to eventually start attending meetings and do follow-up work. So there are so many different types of needs in financial planning firms, depending on the size and the type of firm that you're looking at. As Dan mentioned, an internship is absolutely a good path, both to understand the roles that exist and to get to know firms. And we did last year have a phenomenal intern from Mason. So thank you for Professor Horstmeyer for sending Ali our way. He did great. So start out with an internship and then look at operations roles. It's very common for a first job out of school to do account opening, registration, cashiering, all of the operational work that is done, kind of more of a back office role. It's quite common for firms to hire people with the CFP already. So we expect the technical knowledge and some degree of proficiency with the technology as well to be a beginning associate wealth advisor. So that's much more on the track to meet with clients sooner rather than later. There's a role for traders. Trading it's an important part of what we do. It's also the most commoditized part of what we do. We add value, as John was very clear in saying, by listening to clients and reflecting what they're thinking, evaluating their concerns, and giving guidance that is unique to them. But trading is something that we have to do. Clients, they give us their money to manage, and we should do that. But that's really just a small part of financial planning and wealth management and what we do. So I'm sorry, I don't have a simple, one size fits all answer. There are so many entry-level jobs that are available. One suggestion I do have when you kick off the local Financial Planning Association chapter is to invite some of our local FPA Next Gen, who are younger FPA members, to come speak. A lot of them graduated either with CFP degrees from Virginia Tech or Texas Tech or other schools that have those programs. And some came in, like John and I did from the outside with very different experiences, but they can really give you a sense of who's hiring, what kind of roles exist, what expectations are, what to focus on, and what to avoid. Because, you know, if you're an introvert and you like numbers and you don't want to see clients, then maybe, you know, trading is a much better fit for you, or cashiering. Whereas if you're a real go-getter and you want to do business development and you love to network, you probably don't want to be sitting in a back office, you know, pushing paper all day long. So a lot of it is going to depend on your personality and your preferences.
Mm-hmm. Great points. Oh,
can I follow up on that? I think Susan makes a great point. And you know, everyone wants to graduate from school from one of these programs and be a financial planner and work with clients right away. That's what everyone wants. That's the dream. That's not going to happen for a lot of people. But this is such a fascinating industry. You know, I started at Merrill Lynch. That's not what I wanted to do, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. The experience of working in a wirehouse and learning that side of the business was fascinating for me. Susan has experience in banking, all this other stuff. I mean, there are insurance companies, there are all kinds of different companies where you can build a skill set that will help you in this career and profession that may be your best opportunity immediately after you graduate. Mm-hmm. And so I would say, don't take no to your ideal job right after you graduate as a no, but find an opportunity as a stepping stone to move toward the ideal profession that you want to have.
Great point. Great point. Thank you. Thank you, Susan and John. Next question, we'll throw back to Jason. What extracurricular opportunities might be helpful for somebody who's interested in this career as a CFP?
Sure. And I'll sort of know that I'm talking to Mason students, right? So that means you could be in your teens, late teens and early 20s, or you could be in your 30s or 40s. And that's
true.
Just
completely, yeah.
Terrific thing about Mason. You know, I'll say what is obvious first. You know, going through a curriculum like we are about to have is really important, and getting yourself on the road to the CFP designation is really important. So that's good. But you asked about extracurricular. I think coming into a profession like this, it's important you have a philosophy of some kind. And so as an example, over the holidays, which seemed like a year or two ago, I just started wanting to read some books, not on business, which I always do, but instead just some books on character and maybe even philosophy. I just had this concept in my head and I started reading a couple. And I got into Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, about a psychoanalyst who ended up having to go through concentration camps in World War II and come out of that as someone who validated a lot of his thoughts and his philosophies, and then wrote a number of books and became quite prominent. Didn't die till I think 1997. You know, it was really interesting reading that and what it meant to me around meaning, and having that strength of concept about what you believe in is important, because then you can relate to other family leaders who are telling you what's important and what things mean to them. So whether it's yoga or whether it's reading or whether it's just some side study, we can capture all of those in extracurricular, but have some North Star of some sort. Because when people are willing to pay you to manage their money and their financial lives, they're going to want to kind of believe, whether you're in your mid-20s or 30s or 40s or 50s, that you've got some kind of North Star, that you sort of examined your own life, and that maybe you can help them examine theirs.
That's very great point. Yeah, I mean, having empathy, you know, these are hard things to learn, but having empathy and understanding ethics and being ethical, and there's a whole host of other things outside of just the hard numbers that exist that you can learn in a given course that are really important in this profession. So thank you for saying that.
Sure.
Next up, I'm going to go back to Susan. Can you tell me what a typical day or week might be like in your profession?
Yeah, unpredictable. You know, I got to say, I start out each day, each week with a list of, you know, my priorities, which is, have I spoken to my client recently? Have I met all of their needs? Are they reaching any major milestone birthdays? You know, are they about to retire? Are they about to apply for Medicare? Are they about to start taking required minimum distributions? Do they have kids who have reached the age of 21 in Virginia and we need to switch their UTMA account to their individual account and get to know the kids a little bit? Have they checked their portal recently to look at their quarterly reports? Do they need cash for that extended family holiday that they've been planning on, for the last couple of years? So there's constantly this checklist running in my head of, unfortunately in our client relationship management system too, of what's going on with the clients that I'm responsible for, and am I meeting their needs? And so being very proactive. We require, a full-blown review of all of our clients, at least annually, a meeting. But on top of that, there are periodic touches where we'll initiate contact. We can do tax loss harvesting for you for the last month. That's been a wonderful conversation. Making lemonade out of lemons, and I'm such scarred from that. But we've been, adding value where we can. Rebalancing, not just when the market's really frothy and you can sell stocks high, but rebalancing, buying stocks cheap, which, as all of you can imagine, it's frightening for somebody who's just seen their portfolio drop significant in value. What do you mean you want to buy more stocks? So is there a typical day or a week? I would say the first thing that you have to do is go in knowing that you have an expectation to provide the client service across your client base, not just your favorite clients, not just the squeaky wheels, the most needy clients, but being proactive for all of them. And then you also have to be able to juggle and to reprioritize. And so if you're the kind of person that really, really, really likes to just have a checklist, work through it every day, being a client-facing advisor probably is not the perfect role for you, because I promise you those pesky clients, they'll call when you're busy doing something else and they'll need your attention. And after all, at the end of the day, that's what they're paying you for. So as you study the intro course, which is the first one that everybody will come up with, yes, you'll be doing analysis on clients' investments, on their risk management needs, on their estate planning documents. You'll be looking at the full gamut of their financial picture. But as to the timing of it, I think really flexibility and fluidity is the most important skill that I've really called on, certainly over the last month and really over the last 9 years since I joined the business.
Great points. Yeah, and it's not this is not a 9 to 5 position where you just go in and leave. You're almost like a psychiatrist on call or something. It's especially during times like this, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. And then we'll turn to Dan. What do you find most rewarding about your work besides the money?
Yeah, besides the money. Well, I didn't make any when I first got in the business, so that wasn't the reason why I stayed in it. I think I haven't had any other career. I haven't had a job in doing anything else. But I don't have a lot of peers who get thanked a lot. And I get a lot of thank yous from people. Sometimes they're crying because it's somebody that just passed away, or they're just diagnosed with cancer. And sometimes it's, in emotional situations, but I just don't really know any, maybe outside of teacher. And Derek, I'm sure you're not getting as many thank yous as you should from your students, but I get thanked on a regular basis. I didn't expect that coming into this profession. I just figured they're going to pay me to do the job, and I'm going to do it to the best of my abilities. But your relationships with these people, they tell you things they're not going to tell their closest friends. Mm-hmm. And maybe not even some of their family members, maybe not even their kids. They're telling you things that are intimate to them, and you're helping them through these sometimes periods of time that are of really big emotional situations or great stress. And I'm not looking for the thank yous, but I get them quite a bit, and it means a lot to me. I realize that what I'm doing is helping them, through these struggles. And it means a lot. It makes it a whole lot easier to go to work every single day. Not that I don't get some clients who say, you didn't do a good job. I mean, some people are going to say that, but the vast majority of people are very thankful for what we do. Not all say it, but a lot do. And it's great. So, you know, and I can get, you know, I can make a living to have this awesome bedroom behind me. So, hey.
That's just the guest bedroom. Now we're not even talking about the master.
Yeah, it's just the guest bedroom.
He even has someone come make the bed for him.
No,
The door shut, so no cats and dogs are coming in.
No, that's a great point about, yeah, obviously having an emotionally rewarding kind of job makes it easier to do it, like, because you're obviously feel good about, you know, the people that you're helping. So I think that's a great point to bring up. Thank you. So next we will, let's see, who do we got? Oh, back to John. What obligation does your work put on you outside of the work week?
I think it's a really interesting question. And first I want to piggyback on what Dan just finished saying, because the obligation, once you've been in the profession for a while, not really an obligation. When I go to Phoenix for a vacation or somewhere where I have a client, I'm going to go have dinner with them because the relationship is so valuable to me personally. It's not work anymore. And so once you've been in the profession and built relationships over years and decades, that is an obligation, but it's not necessarily a burden, because it's something that it naturally evolves the better you are at it. As you go through the career, there are going to be different obligations. I mean, it depends on the type of firm you're with. Jason, for example, with his own firm, I'm sure there's no difference between his work life and his personal life, because everything is about his you know, his business. And I won't speak for Jason, but that's a very different business model than Susan's business model, where a lot of the firm and the running of the firm is being done by other people. I sort of wear both hats. Dan and I run our firms as well as advise clients. So there's a little bit of both for us. And thus, when you are running a firm or you're an owner of a firm, you do bring that home. You're working, owners think about the business all the time. Susan used to before settling the business.
Yeah, what happened to Susan? She used to be so good.
Yeah.
Guys, just to give you a little background, we sold our firm a couple of years ago. And so, yeah, I wore both hats for several years. And I like just being an advisor. It's a lot less stressful.
There you go. And so I think as you evolve into your career, there are going to be different ways that the career will put obligations on you in your personal life. But I think when you're starting the career, there are a couple of important things to think about. And I have been telling this to my young advisors who have joined us recently. A time like right now, for example, it's really important for you to pay attention to what's going on in the world. And I'm not talking about coronavirus. I'm talking about, why are the markets doing what they're doing? If you're going to be a good advisor, clients are going to be asking you specific questions about what they read in the Wall Street Journal this morning, or what they saw on whatever news channel they watch. And so I believe the obligation on people who are new to the profession is really to make sure you're on top of everything. And that's a broad statement, but you have to know what's going on in the world. And a lot of young people don't really do that these days. At least if I pay attention to what my teenage kids are doing or college age kids are doing, they're not watching the news. They're not reading magazines and important things about trends going on in the business world and stuff like that. Your clients are. And so it's important to stay up on that sort of stuff. And sometimes there aren't enough hours in the day, and that's what maybe the weekend is for, is to read a little bit and catch up on those sorts of things. So that's maybe the obligation that is most necessary, I think, for people starting their careers.
Very great points. Yeah, keeping up with I mean, here at Mason, a lot of students don't even know. So everyone who's listening, you have free access to Barron's, and you can get a Wall Street Journal subscription for, I think, $1 per quarter. Literally, they charge you a student subscription for $1 per quarter. So sign up for that. If you get in the habit of just
alumni get in on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I tell my students all about it all the time. If you sign up for that and just get in the business of just following the Wall Street Journal and just, you know, reading it even every other day, just to learn, you know, what's going on in markets, it'll make you so much more marketable when you go out there on the job market, no matter what job you're going for. So great points. Next up, we will go back to Jason. Is there a typical career path for somebody interested in this field?
No, is the easy answer. You know, it's rare you find a rock star like Dan who started in the business and has taken it 20 plus years and became a partner. It's much more common, at least it has been much more common to see career changers like myself and Susan and maybe a tiny degree John. And what is important to sort of take a look at if you're kind of thinking of this profession is how young it is. And so it's the same age as Jennifer Lopez. It's 51 years old this year. There's been finance, there's been stock trading for 100 years, but the financial planning profession is only about 51 years old. And so I can say to you, yeah, there's no direct way into this profession necessarily. There hasn't been traditionally, but that's changing. And it's changing because of great schools like George Mason University that are putting these curriculums in place. And so like when I was in accounting in the 90s, I could know that there was a straight line I could walk if I wanted to be a really important accountant one day. Get my degree, graduate, and then pass that CPA exam, though that didn't work out for me. In this case, we're going to have something similar now, which is just terrific. Get through your degree with the certified financial planning sort of curriculum, and then go and take this incredibly hard test. And you won't be a CFP even if you pass, but you'll be on the way. So you knock on Dan's door, you knock on Susan's door, you knock on John's door and say, hey, I've got a financial planning curriculum behind me, and I've actually taken or I'm about to take the exam, and I just need the experience now to have the letters. Will you hire me? A lot easier of a yes than a no. But the truth is, for folks who are changing careers or going to Mason because you want to do something different, whatever you've done, it qualifies you because that experience is going to be helpful. My career started in banking while I was in college. Not cool banking like Susan's, I mean bank teller banking while I was in college. Then I got jobs in accounting for about 8 years. Then I did accounting and finance staffing for a few years. I ran for Congress. None of this stuff is directly financial advisor work, but all this stuff, when I turned around and looked, kind of fit for something. And I had said no to the profession when I graduated. I said no to it a couple of years after I graduated. I said no to it a few times after that. And finally, I said yes to it. And when I did, I was able to take all those different experiences and have real life conversations with my clients. As everyone has said, you're going to need the certified financial planner marks to really be credible. I mean, you can get along without it, but you're going to need it to be credible in this profession. But there are 86,000 of us out there. So what else are you going to bring to the table? And it's going to be your experiences. And if you've had the good fortune to kind of do this in a straight line, it's wonderful. But if you've had different stops along the way, that's equally wonderful.
Great points, great points. Thank you. This one's throwing it back to John. What do you see as the major trends for this industry coming up in the next 3 to 5 years?
I'm going to answer that a couple of ways. And of course, everyone has an opinion on this. So happy to have my colleagues jump in. But the most immediate thought that everyone, I think, thinks of is how is the immediate coronavirus impacting things? And I think what we're going to see over the next 3 to 5 years is something we haven't seen in the last 11, which is clients now know that markets go down. There's a whole subset of clients out there who have never experienced a down market, and boy, did they experience one last month. And so I think a trend toward wanting help, because my guess is that a lot of the do-it-yourselfers are really in a bad place right now and thinking maybe I should have someone to go through this with. So that's the first thing I think immediately that coronavirus and the world we're living in right now is going to impact, is the fact that risk is real and people are going to be searching for a partner to go through that risk with. Second thing I'd say is that a lot of firms, my colleagues, especially the medium-sized firms like mine, we have about 13 employees, about 350 clients, but A lot of firms in our size range have a lot of really old clients. And I don't want to disrespect old people, but at the end of the day, they're drawing down their portfolios, and most people in our profession get paid based on the assets we're managing. And what that means is that they have assets going down. I have a few colleagues who have a bleed, or they're losing 8 to 10% of their assets every year just because of clients spending their money, which means you have to grow your firm at 8 to 10% per year just to stay even. That doesn't count growth. So I think there's going to be a trend among a lot of firms trying to open up and find younger clients to replenish and refresh that client base and that asset base, so that they don't have that sort of bleed that really, from a strategic perspective, is really difficult to deal with. The third thing I'd say is that the one thing we have seen over the last few years is consumers are being much better educated. People are out there reading stuff, almost to a point of they're reading too much stuff. But consumer education, I think, is going to continue to improve, and thus the importance to differentiate why they should pay you money to do something that they could maybe able to Google, or maybe able to ask their son who's a finance major at college. And so figuring out how you can differentiate what you have, whether it's the way you do business, the process, or whether it's just the experience you bring to the table. Firms that are able to demonstrate and talk about how they're different from other firms are going to be the ones that are going to be successful with a more educated consumer base.
Very good points. Very good points. Thank you for that. So I just wanted to inform the students that are on here. We have about 10 or 11 minutes left. We've enabled the chat feature. We have 2 prepared questions left, but if you would like to ask any questions in chat, please do enable that. You can pull it up at the very bottom of your Zoom link. And then, so I'm going to ask this question to Dan, but I will be keeping an eye on the chat. So please do ask any questions that you want answered. So Dan, can you tell me anything you learned about the CFP? What were the challenges and opportunities available once you passed the CFP?
Well, the test itself has changed since I took it in 2006. It used to be a 2-day test, and you actually had to go to a testing center and do it on paper. Technology is advanced enough that that no longer exists, and I believe it's just a 1-day exam at this point, but over, I don't know, 6 hours, something. It's a struggle. I studied for it while I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old in my house while I was still in the profession. So for anybody to tell me they don't have time or they're really busy because they're working a job, cry me a river. I had to, you know, I had to go to work all day, and then I had to try to study from about 9 to 12 at night. I was able to finish all of my requirements in like a little over a year. It's a tough exam, but it should be tough. We're trying to get people who are the best at what we do. As far as, you know, finishing the exam, I never had anybody specifically said, hey, I hired you just because you're a CFP. But I've had lots of people since then say, you have your CFP, right? And I said, yeah. And you get more people to what John said about people being aware of this profession a little bit more. More people were asking what a fiduciary, if we are fiduciary. And for those of you on the call, that's, you know, just somebody who's going to put the client's best interest first. And 10 years ago, I don't know if I'd ever had anybody ask me if we were fiduciaries, but almost every single client who comes in now is asking if we are.
Wow.
So, I mean, they may not understand what fiduciary really means, but they you know, we call it the F word, you know, hey, somebody asked me the F word. They definitely have gotten aware of it, and they know to ask that question more. So, and when you're a CFP, the simple answer is, I take an oath as a CFP to put my client's best interest first. I have to. I can't be a CFP if I don't do that. So that's a disconnect with the public today. They don't know that yet, but I think as there's more information and more awareness out there, they're just going to know that CFPs are required to put their best interest first. Looks like we got a bunch of questions, so we might move on to that.
Before I jump into that first question, just because we have a lot of students here, maybe 18, 19, 20 years old, as a CFP, you abide by the fiduciary standard, and it might be surprising to some students out there. There are wealth advisors and financial planners that don't abide by the fiduciary standard, which means they don't have to put their client's interest before their own, if I'm stating that correctly, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So yeah, we got some great questions coming in. Here's an interesting one from Omar, and again, I'll open it up to the whole group. At what point will you consider firing, moving on from a client, and how has that experience gone for you?
Awesome.
Go, Dan.
Dan's the firing guy.
Yeah, you go.
The first thing that a client has to do is they have to respect our staff, and they have to be nice people. If they don't respect my staff and they think they can treat my staff however they want, they're gone. There's 1.2 million people in Fairfax County. We have 400 clients. I don't need a million clients. I tell people when they come to interview us to work for them, we're also interviewing them. We want to work with nice people. I don't want to work with mean people. And if you're going to be a mean person or not nice person, it's not going to work. I don't have, and if they ever are disrespectful to our staff, they get one warning, and if it doesn't change, then they're asked to move their account.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer, and across the board, that's exactly right. I think the other time when I've experienced firing clients, it's really when they're just consistently not. It's one thing for a client to not take our advice once or twice, but if they consistently don't take our advice, we have a conversation and say, look, you're paying me money, you're paying me good money, but you're not taking my advice, so it's really not in your best interest to keep paying me for no advice. Now we've had some people push back and say, well, you make me think about things and I want that. And so we'll have that conversation. But people who consistently don't take your advice, we're responsible for them. And so in some ways we're responsible for the decisions they're making. And then you at some point have some sort of liability for the decisions they're making if you don't fire them.
Yeah, I think I could sum that up by just saying that, if you've got a client who consistently calls in and you look at your colleagues and everybody goes, I did it last time, it's your turn. That's a pretty good indicator.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Next one we have coming in from Danny Ferfino. What are some of the most important technical skills you are looking for interns in your field?
Go ahead, John.
When I'm looking for interns, I'm assuming that you're going to have the technical skills. If you're at a school like this, I've seen when I've looked at resumes. I remember one summer we were looking at someone who was at Virginia Tech's CFP program, and they were going up against a person who was a finance major at UVA, but had not taken any of the CFP types of classes. So if you're at a CFP board approved program like what Mason's starting, that's going to put you from a technical skills perspective into the running from anyone I'm looking for. And then what we look for are the people who have the soft skills that we can teach, the people skills, do you fit into our culture? Are you ambitious? Or do you take initiative? All of those sorts of things that are not technical skills. Those are really the things that we can't teach you. We can teach you the technical stuff. So that would be how I would answer that question.
May I add on that one of the things we look for that we don't want to see in your background is really stupid social media posts too. So make sure you have a clean profile.
Very good advice. No matter what field you go into, have a clean Facebook and Instagram profile. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. We have one from Marco. Relationship building with clients must be crucial. Does the knowledge and skills matter to working with clients, whether it's managing their assets and helping them achieve their financial goals?
Yes, I mean, that's an easy one. They're not going to likely hire you unless they think you've got those skills. And understand that it's kind of a relationship that they're deciding to pay for. As John mentioned, people can do this on their own, not necessarily as well as, professionals can, but they can try. And in this area, if you're going to be in this area, just look at the people that you have to compete with, that I have to compete with. There's a lot of folks who are really good at doing this business and may have been doing it for a lot longer than you have. And so you end up having really the rest of what you've got is, hey, this is the kind of personality I have. This is the style that I have with these credentials. Would you prefer to work with someone like me? Or would you prefer to work with someone like a Dan or a Susan or John? So you're always sort of conscious of that reality, that there are options on both sides of the table.
Very good point. So with that, we have about 1 minute left. So I'm going to go through and ask our 4 panelists if they have any final words of advice or anything of that magnitude. And I guess we'll start off with Dan. And yeah.
I'm happy to stay on longer if anybody wants to stay on longer. You just let me know.
I want to be mindful of everyone's time. I'm not sure how.
Maybe we can answer one of the chat questions in our closing comments. How about that?
Sure. Yeah. If there's a chat question you see that you like, please. Yeah.
Let me check the questions. Let's see. This is a long one. Let's see. This is my last. This is from. I'm going to mess up the first name. Last name's Ibrahim. This is my last semester at Mason, and I've been working as a financial planning assistant under Cfp and Ameriprise for almost 2 years now. Hence, I am really interested in starting a career in financial planning. However, it has been really hard getting my foot through the door and finding a full-time job in the current situation. So do you have any tips? Sure, give me a call. I know multiple firms that are hiring for advisors right now. Problem is we're not like, there is no Nike or Coca-Cola of financial planning. There isn't one giant firm, a Walmart of financial planning. It doesn't really exist. Most of the firms, we're 16, 17 employees, and we're considered relatively large. There are firms larger than ours, but a lot of it is, we reach out to other advisors. There's a company called New Planner Recruiting that I would highly recommend that you talk to. They find new planners and they do recruiting for firms around the country. So any one of the panelists could probably give you names of people they might know of somebody who's hiring. It's just, that's what networking is. And I think as the program at Mason grows, it won't be as hard for people to find ways to get their foot in the door. There'll be multiple opportunities to find people. The profession is hiring. Obviously, the last month or so has maybe affected some people's ideas of who they want to hire and when. But we've been looking for 2 positions over the last few months, and we're not going to let working from home stop us from continuing to hire. I hope that's helpful.
No, really helpful. I guess we'll turn to Susan if there's any final comments or a question that you saw up there that you would really like to answer.
Okay, I'm going to go for a final comment, and I'm going to look back to myself in college and kind of reflect on, did I anticipate being an advisor when I was 20 years old? I didn't know the career existed. I'd never heard of being a CFP. I grew up in a small town in England. I think the one thing that you should take away from this is that taking a certified financial planning course in college gives you a phenomenal background to be an advisor, either professionally or just to know a ton more about the industry. People come to our industry from accounting, people come from all walks of life and all prior career positions. And so there is no one single track. And follow your passion, as John mentioned. Don't worry if you don't get the dream job. It's a stepping stone. You'll figure out, what's good, what's bad, and it'll shape you and you'll move on to the next thing. I didn't become an advisor until 9 years ago, and I was in my late 40s. So, and I have no regrets on my path. It just was not linear. And don't worry about that. That's, it doesn't have to be.
Very good points. Jason?
Sure. I'll try to do at least answer a question here. I'll answer that question from Jose about the kind of compensation that you can come across, and it may answer another question in there about getting foot in the door. The reality is, as I mentioned, the profession is changing in that it's becoming a profession. It hasn't always been. It's only been about 51 years or so, one could say. And so to get into a firm like Dan's or John's or Susan's or these smaller firms compared to just organizations in general, that might be challenging. It might not be, depending on what they need. There are other large firms, but they're not going to be exactly financial planning, right? So I did a few years at New York Life. Essentially, if you pass an insurance exam, they'll let you in the door and you can start practicing one sliver of the financial planning process. They're going to focus on that sliver, but it is a foot in the door. You're not going to get a paycheck at all. You're going to be commission only. And you're going to have to constantly make decisions around what you believe is the right offering for this particular customer, because it really becomes a customer relationship almost more than a client. But you can go into these insurance-based firms and you can do that well, maybe not tomorrow because of the pandemic, but you can do it pretty quickly. You can get an application in, you can take a test, and you can start in the profession. Really, it doesn't matter too much how you start. It just matters, what your value system is and what you want to offer clients. If you eventually want to become a planner, you can do that. Vanguard, Fidelity, these are other firms that might be closer to what Dan referenced to, that Coca-Cola size. You're going to be on the phone though. It's different, but they are expanding what they're doing. So you can be a CFP on the phone. I know Vanguard has a whole sort of career chain that a person can take where they're on the phone and then maybe they're further on the phone and they're doing other stuff. You just may have to live maybe somewhere else depending on whether you go Vanguard or Fidelity. And you're not going to make what you might be having in your head that financial advisors make. But the truth is you aren't going to make that to start anyway. It's going to be a few years before you get to some lofty number. So wherever you can get your foot in the door, whether it's a big box, Merrill, Morgan Stanley kind of a thing, or whether you're really fortunate and can get into some work with some of these cool mid-sized firms like, John Yankees, Dan Lash's, and Susan's. Wherever you can do it, you should do it, and just not really worry about the compensation too much, because you're not likely to make what the person graduating with an accounting degree is making right out of school, because they're ready to go right away. And financial planning is just a little different. It's really a little younger. I hope that helps.
Yeah, very good. John?
Yeah, I think that was really well said, Jason.
Thanks, John.
And that was really what I was going to end with as well, in terms of the concept of patience when you're a young person starting a career, or if you're a career changer starting in this career.
Yep.
The reason people like Dan Lash make a lot of money now,
even though it's not all about the money for Dan.
It's not about the money, but the compensation thing is important for people straight out of school, right? They've got student debt, they're trying to pay a lease on an apartment, etc. It's really important, but if you follow the money, you're not going to get to the career you want to be, because I can assure you that Vanguard and Fidelity will pay you way more straight out of college than Dan or I or Susan will pay you. And so you have to make that choice. What's important to me? Is it important to learn how to be a good advisor and to gain a breadth of experience? Or is it important to have as high a base salary as some of my peers who work in totally different careers and professions that have nothing to do with what I do? That's the decision you have to make. And so I want to get back to the concept of patience. You have to be patient. The reason why the client who I mentioned earlier, who was on Friday was fine and today wanted to get out of the market, the reason why they pay us a lot of money is because I was able to talk about a client experience that I had almost 10 years ago in 2008
Mm.
and relay that to them. You don't have that. You don't have that when you're coming out of school. They pay you good money for experience and wisdom. And, you know, as Simon Sinek says in his great TED Talk, you know, there ain't no quick way around that. People see the top of the mountain and want to get there, but there's still a mountain. The mountain is experience and wisdom, and you get that with patience. And so I would just encourage you, this is a wonderful profession. I'm only 50. I only found this at age 30, but I am where I want to be for the last half of my life, hopefully. And so you can get there a lot quicker than I did, because I didn't start till I was 30. So you can get there a lot quicker, but you have to have patience, because what people pay you for is that wisdom and the experience.
Mm. I think that's great words of advice. In fact, we're getting a lot of things in the chat saying, thank you for this perspective. This panel was really helpful. I think that's a great kind of point to end on. I don't want to, I mean, the panelists, all four of you, thank you very much for this. And to everybody that's listening, please email me any questions that you have. I can even pass them on to particular panelists here if you have any more questions. And, oh, sorry, John.
I was just say, Derek, I know that the four of us are happy to directly engage with anyone. So please feel free to give them our contact information as well. We're happy to talk to anyone.
Yes.
Please do.
Great. Yeah. So again, yes, that's phenomenal. So again, I want to thank everyone for attending this, all the students, all the panelists. Again, thank you very much for this. And again, email any questions to me or the panelists. And I hope everyone is doing well out there.
Thanks.
Take care,
Thank you all.
Great.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.